I recently had a member of the admin bar community reach out to me to ask a little bit about how I set up my project management system for my agency using Airtable. So I replied to him with this templated base that I created, as well as about a 30-minute walkthrough video about how it's all set up and how I incorporate these systems into the kinds of data that I need for my agency. So figuring that this would probably be useful for more people than just him, I decided to record this quick intro to give you a little bit of context and then give you the full video that I produced for him. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you have any questions, make sure to hit us up inside the admin bar community, which you can find in the link down in the description. What I have in here are three different tables. There's tasks, there's projects, there's contacts, and all of these are linked together. So usually what I'm looking at during the day is like all the tasks I need to get done. However, I want all of those tasks to be counted against some kind of project. So I shouldn't be working on something that there's not some kind of project attached to. And I want to be able to see what kind of tasks I've done on those projects. So by linking those together, I can link all that data together and have a bigger picture of what all's going on with each project. Of course, with each project, when we go in here, with each project, I need to have some kind of client associated with it. So I have a clients table. So we'll just go over all the fields here and we'll kind of talk about how they work. So I think contacts is kind of at the top of the hierarchy and everything drips down from there. I'm going to hide this. I do have some fields in here that I've hidden or deleted out of this one just to make the demo make sense. So what we have in here is the company name, the contact name, their email address, their phone number, lead source, which I just have as a single select field. You can pick different ways you found this customer, and then this links to their projects. So this would be kind of the minimum amount of data I would want to collect on a contact. Of course, we'll talk about how you can collect a whole lot more things to make it more useful, but this is kind of the dumbest version that makes sense. And typically what I'll do in this very first field, since it's the primary record in this table, I usually use a formula field and concatenate information just to make sure that I'm making something unique every time. So to give you an example, let's say I had ABC company and we had Tish as one of the contacts, but also at ABC company, I have Joe as another contact. So I don't want this contact ID to just be ABC company because I might have multiple contacts. I don't want it to just be Joe because I might have Joe from ABC company and Joe from somewhere else. Or Joe might actually have several different companies that he owns multiple businesses. So I want to have some kind of unique record there for the contact ID. So usually what I'll just do is do some kind of concatenate, and you'll see that that's in all of these except task, and I'll kind of explain why I don't do it there. So in here, we would just fill out this information, joe at abc.com. We'll go 555. 555, 5555. We'll say Joe came in to me organically, and I don't have any projects yet. Now, Tish, we'll just say Tish at abc.com. We'll just copy her phone number. And Tish actually came as a referral from Joe since I met Joe first. So I can say, boom, there's a referral. So then let's say we get a project. So this might come in as some kind of inquiry. So let's say ABC company wants a new website. So we say new website build as the title. This is usually just a really short title that I can reference with the project so I know which one we're talking about in case we have multiple projects with the same person. So right now this is an opportunity. I have some different statuses built in here. So opportunity, upcoming, that's kind of when they've signed off but we hadn't got started yet. An open project, so a project build that we're doing. Ongoing for things like care plans or SEO. Completed when the project's over, or dead when you have an opportunity but it never turned into a project. So those are kind of the statuses I pick there. So here for this new website build, it's an opportunity, it's a website build, and it's for ABC, and we're going to say this is for Joe. So now we'll see that this project is linked to this client, so I can go in here and find out all the information about that contact. And also in the contact, I can see what all projects I have for this customer. So if he did another project with me later, this would still be linked inside of his contact information, so I can see what all projects I've done for him. Okay, so now that we got this new opportunity in here, we might have some tasks we need to do. So in the task, I actually don't use a formula field. I'll just use the task. I found that doing the concatenated unique ID for these gets a little bit messy when you have a ton of them, and it makes it harder to see what the tasks are. Usually tasks are something that's not going to be ongoing for a long time, so they're getting moved out of here pretty quickly. So there's rarely a time where I have like a problem with duplicate task names and I can't tell them apart. So for me, it's kind of overkill to do it here, but you could certainly do it. So we might say we need to set up a discovery call. And this is for a project, and this is the only project we have in here, which it should load here in a second, is this new website build for ABC Company. And this is something that we pick a status on for these tasks. So I have stalled, which we'll talk about later when we get into automations. We have to do, waiting. So if we're waiting on the client to provide some kind of information, proofing. So if I've sent it out to the client but haven't heard back, and then finish. So this is going to be a to do task. We can put in a date here. We'll say January 21st, and then additional details is just kind of a catch-all field for me. I do this as a long text field and enable formatting. So I have all those options in here, but if I need to put notes in here, I can keep up with things that way. You also have the ability to expand this record, and inside the activity, you can leave comments. Now on the free plan, you only have 2 weeks of revision history. So you can only see these comments from 2 weeks ago. So I don't like to put anything in these comments that is I'm going to need to reference later on because it will disappear, but it is good for some quick notes. And if you have a pro account, you get like a year of revision history. So sometimes that opens up a little bit more window. So I can go in here and I can see the task I need to do. Of course, I could, when I send over the discovery call email and I'm waiting for him to book, I can change that to waiting. It changes to waiting. Whenever it's finished, whenever we have the call, I can just change it to finished. Now, this looks super basic when we only have a few things in here, but it gives you an idea. So I'm going to now jump into the one where I've already filled things out, since you kind of see how this all filters down. Now, it might be a little bit overwhelming because I have a lot more fields available inside the other one, but we'll kind of discuss those and go through them. So I'm going to jump out of here and I'm going to go into this one with sample data. So you see the setup is basically the same. We have tasks, we have projects, we have contacts. But I've advanced things quite a bit. So one thing in here is I've grouped this view, which is the all records view, and we're going to talk about views a little bit more. But I've grouped this view by the status. So we have all my to-dos in a little bunch. We have all the things that are waiting. We have the things that are proofing. We have the things for finishing. So this is kind of like my overview of all the tasks that are going on. Typically, I even hide finished. So you could create a filter and say where status is not finished, and then it'll take away the finished ones because you really don't need to look at those, but it gives you an idea. You can create these however you'd like. So I really don't have any more fields available here inside the task, but I do have a lot of different views. So views come in handy because context is so important. So if I'm going in here just as like the project manager and saying, okay, what all's on the plate for today? What are we waiting on? This gives me the nice overview. But if I get in here to start implementing, like I get to my desk, I need to knock out some work, I don't really need to worry about the things that are proofing or waiting or all that. I just want to see to-dos. So I've created a to-do view, and basically all this is done is taken it and said, okay, where the status is to do, show those in here. So now I'm seeing all the ones that are in the status of to do. Now I do have these sorted by the due date. So, the things at the top are the things I need to work on first because they're due the soonest. But other than that, that's basically all that's in here. We do have waiting and proofing. So same idea is if I come in here and say, man, I don't have anything to do. What am I waiting on clients for? What's out proofing? Maybe I need to follow up on these things. Those things are in this view. So again, context is important. What are you coming into your project management tool to do? Lastly, we can see completed. So if you needed to go over, what work you got done this month, you could always set up different filters in here to group these by certain months or see how much work you got done. And then lastly, we have the form for adding a new task. So I'm in the habit of just adding records directly in here, but I know a lot of people find the forms a lot more helpful. So you can create these forms to be able to quickly just add things into your project management system. And then you can access these forms from anywhere. You don't have to be logged into Airtable or anything. You just go to share form, grab this URL, and then you can access this form from anywhere, even your phone. It works really well on your phone. So I have those saved in the bookmarks folder on my phone. So if I'm out and about and need to add a task, I can just jump on that form and jot in notes real quick. It'll go in there and I'll know I have it when I get back later. All right. So in the projects, we've added a ton of fields in here. First, quick overview. I did set up different views. So again, context. If I just want to see an overview of everything that's going on with the agency, I can see that. I can see just my opportunities. So if I need to follow up on some of those, I can see the upcoming projects, which in this one I don't have any right now. But if I was trying to plan out my workload for the next month, upcoming projects would be important. We have our open projects. So these are the builds and stuff we're working on right now. Ongoing projects, so care plans, marketing, SEO, those kinds of things, and then completed and dead projects. Again, same thing with the form. But now what we've done is we've added a lot more fields in here. And the thing about Airtable is you can customize everything a million different ways. It's really limitless. So that's a good thing because you can make this data do exactly what you need to do, but it's also a tough thing because it's hard for me to share like a template with you and say, hey, this will work perfectly. Because really, no two people's bases are going to be exactly alike. You're going to need to look at data different. You're going to need to save different data. So what I want to do here is just show you some ideas. I think what's really important with Airtable is like learning how each one of the fields work, learning how they link together, and then kind of seeing some examples of some ways you could do things just as to get ideas. But really you need to be able to go in there and say, okay, well, I need to do this differently, but I know exactly how to do it. So I'm going to show you some ideas just to kind of get your mind going on it. So we have the same ones in here: the title, the status, the type of project, the client. Now we've added some date fields in here because sometimes this is important. So I have a first contact date. This is just a normal date field. And I can put in here, when I first made contact with this customer. We have when the project started, we have when the project finished. Now in this overview view, I have all those in here. But again, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to say it 500 times, but context is important. When I'm looking at opportunities, I don't need to see the date the project started, the date the project finished, because the project hasn't started or finished yet. So you can hide those things away. So you can see here in my hidden fields, I've hidden project start, I've hidden project finish. All I need to see is the date of first contact. So I can say, okay, I first contacted him January 12th. This allows you to do calculated fields and see how many days has it been since we first talked, or if it's been so many days, set up some kind of automation. It opens up a lot of doors. So like I said, context is important. In the opportunities, I only need to see the first contact. In open projects, I really only need to see the project start. So I don't really care about when I first started talking to the client. Now that data is still here, I can always go back and add in first contact. It's going to throw it at the end here. But I can always go back and see that if I need to. But typically, I'm not going to need to see that when I'm looking at open projects. Let's see. We'll go back here to where we can see everything. So beyond the dates there, we have the project value. So usually I'll use kind of like a project value for like the flat fee of a project. So if it's like project based, it's going to be, X amount of dollars, whatever it may be. But that's going to be different than recurring value. So something like a care plan, it's not a flat amount. It's an amount every month. So we have the project value here, and then we have a recurring value. So some of these will have one or the other. Some might have both. But we can keep all that in here and then check the billing frequency. So in here, I have a single select field where it's either a one-off, like for a project, monthly, quarterly, or annually, so I can see kind of how these people are all billed. So you might, most of the time it's either going to have either a project value or a recurring value, but there are scenarios where you'd have both. So for instance, we have this Lawtown company that I'm doing SEO work for. So you could say, maybe I charge them a $500 initial fee to like do their onboarding and keyword research and all that, and then it's $600 monthly. So I do want to be able to track both of those things in here. So I am able to put like that initial project value and then the recurring value. So that gives you kind of an idea of the value stuff or the pricing stuff, and then the billing frequency. Now we get into some more advanced things, and I'm sorry I'm running through things quickly, but so here's a more complex field you can think about, and this is where Airtable really opens things up for me, is in some of these formulas and the way you can view the data differently. So one example I set up, and like I said, there's a million ways you could do this, a limitless amount of possibilities in this. This is just one example. So one thing I might want to track is the lifetime recurring value. And because I've tracked the date that we started, I know what today is or when a project finished, and then I know the recurring value, like the monthly price of a care plan, and I can calculate how long they've been on a plan. I can calculate the recurring lifetime value. So, for example, in here, we'll look at this 314 accounting care plan. They came in on services on November 16th, 2021, or I'm sorry, September 14th, 2021, and there's no project finished, so that means it's still open. Now, their recurring value is $100. Let's see, I'm going to move this over. The recurring value is $100 a month, and I bill them monthly. So this formula field that I was just talking about is going to calculate, okay, September 14th to today, which is January 20th, it's going to calculate how many months that is and multiply that by the recurring value and give me the lifetime value. So if they started on September 14th, I charge them $100 a month, and today's January 20th, then they paid me $400 in the lifetime of this project. So these formulas can get kind of advanced and crazy. This is some nested if statements. These for me were really, really intimidating getting started. But once you understand the syntax, and there's a lot of really good documentation on Airtable, once you understand the syntax of it, it's pretty simple. I do miss parentheses here or there, and sometimes it's frustrating to get it going. But basically what this formula is saying is if the project finish date is blank, so that's for projects that haven't finished, they're still ongoing, then what I need to do is calculate the time difference between now, whatever today is, and when the project started, and then spit that value out in the number of months. So that's what this first part is doing right here. And then I'm going to take whatever that value is. So in this case, it's September to January, it's 4 months, and I'm going to multiply that by the recurring value. So their value was $100. So this part right here is giving me this $400. It's saying, okay, they've been with me 4 months and it's $100 a month. So the amount it's going to spit out is $400. Now, if the project finish date is not blank, that's what this little exclamation equals blank, that means it's not blank, so it does have a finish date in there, then what I need to calculate isn't today's date. I need to calculate the time difference between when it finished and when it started. So here we have project finish and then project start, and I want them to spit this out in the number of months and then multiply that by the recurring value. So if we went in here and said, okay, this project started September 14th and it ended November 16th. Well, now it's only 2 months. So now that total is $200 because the lifetime of this account was only 2 months. So this formula is smart enough to know, because of those if statements, whether we're calculating from today's date or if we're calculating from like a start and finish date. So things like this is what really makes Airtable valuable to me, because I can go in there and calculate so many different things. These formulas will total up. Right here, I have all these set to sum, which is just going to total it. So I can see, in ongoing projects right now, I'm bringing in $1,000 a month. In open projects, this one here, the project value is $1,500. Here in opportunities, I have $4,500 in opportunities, and then completed, I finished $2,500 worth. So same deal in here is we have all these views. We can go through all of our opportunities. We can go through upcoming projects. We can go through open projects, ongoing projects, completed projects, and we have a form to add new projects in here. Contacts, I don't think I added a ton in here. We do have, like we saw before, the company name, the contact, the email, the phone, how that lead came in, and then it's going to tag into any projects that they've done with me. Like you can see here in this example one, I have 2 projects for Patty at 314 Accounting. So I have her care plan and I have a knowledge base website. So I can jump into those really quick and see what things we have going on with that project, what status it is. Now, here's another pretty awesome field, which is a rollup field. So what this rollup field doing is it's going in here and looking at the project value of these projects and then summing together those totals. So now I can go in here and see, okay, what are all these customers worth to my company? So I can see Joe Blow is currently worth the most amount to my company. Now, when you have a small amount of data like we do in this table, this isn't that helpful. But if you talk about years and years of an agency, you might have some clients that have been on care plans for 3 years and then some that just started but did a big project. And it's a nice way to go back and see, like, okay, which customers are bringing the most into my agency? Which ones should I be paying the most attention to? Which ones aren't bringing in a whole lot of money? Is there opportunity there? So there's lots of things like that. So all these tables are really dependent on each other. We can't put in a task unless we have a project to assign it to, and we can't put in a project unless we have a contact to assign it to. Now, that's just the way I set it up because I want all these things to connect. I want to make sure whatever tasks I'm working on are going towards some kind of project, and each project needs to have somebody that I can contact, right? So you see it gets a whole lot more advanced really quickly. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about, and for me, this is probably my favorite part of Airtable, is all the automations. So I've set up just a couple sample ones, again, just to kind of get your mind going around the possibilities. The possibilities, again, are completely endless, but this gives you a few ways to get your mind going, see what might be possible or see what might make sense for you. So there's a lot of things that I want to happen without me having to go do it. So the first one here is email today's tasks. So what this automation says is when a record matches the condition, then I want you to do this automation. So when a task status is to do and the due date is today, I want you to fire off this automation. So basically any task that's due today. And the action I want it to take is send me an email. So what this is going to do, Airtable is going to send me an email. You put in your email address here. You can put in the subject. In the subject, I'm just putting today's task and then bringing in the due date, which is today's date. So if I have a bunch of these emails inside my inbox, I can tell which one's which. And then inside the body of the message, I'm bringing in a grid of all the tasks that are due today. So if I preview this email, this is kind of what the email would look like. It would come to me, the subject would say today's task, and then this inside the body of the email would be a list of all the tasks I need to do today. So for me, I kind of start my day opening my inbox and going through all that. So it's nice for me to have this little preview of like, okay, here's what today's workload looks like. So I get this little chart of everything. So you can turn these automations on and then never think about it again. Every day when you wake up, if there's to-dos today, then it's going to send you this email. So that's one example. Another example, and this is something that's been handy inside my agency. I do this a little bit differently because I have a pro account and I can take advantage of some features that aren't in this free account. I'm going to share these bases with you. So I didn't know if you had a paid account or not. So I just put it on the free one. So the idea of this automation is if you have a lot of things going on, you might forget that somebody's been proofing something for 3 weeks, or that you've been waiting to hear back from a client to get some information to update their website. So for me, I don't want to have to go through this data every day and see, has this been too long? So the idea of this automation is it's automatically going to trigger something if we've been waiting for a long time on something. So what this is doing is again, when a record matches conditions, the condition is task, where the status is either waiting or proofing. So those are both statuses where it's in my customer's hands and it's off my plate, so I'm not thinking about it. And where the last status change is before 1 week ago. So let's talk about this little field real quick. This is something that I put in basically every table and hide away because I don't need to actually look at it, but it comes in really, really handy for automation. So we'll open this up here and unhide this. What this field is a last modified time. This is a default field that's inside of Airtable. So it's the last time this record was updated or modified, but you can filter that down to specific fields within that data. So what I'm saying is basically put a timestamp in here every time every time I switch the status, I want the latest timestamp of when I did that. So it's saying specific fields status. So if I go in here, we can see I haven't changed the statuses in a while. This is today's date, but at 5:25 a.m. If I change this to waiting, it's going to move it down here, but now it says 8:31 a.m. because that's right now's time. So I'll put that back into to do. But what's really nice about this is now I can fire a lot of automations off based off of this last modified date. And I find this really, really handy. So it's almost default. Anytime I make a base, I'm going to put this last modified one in there and then hide it away because I almost always find a reason to use it. So back to that automation. What this is doing is saying if the status is waiting or proofing, and the last time we changed that status, and the last time we changed it was either to waiting or proofing, is before 1 week ago. Now you could change this to whatever you want. For me, like if I sent something off to proof and I hadn't heard back in a week, I probably want to follow up. So that's the trigger. If something's been stalled for a week. Now, in my Airtable base, I have the opportunity because of my paid plan to use this color feature. And basically all it does is put a little colored bar next to a record when it meets certain conditions. So what I do inside this automation in mine is not update a record, but I add that color to the field. So it gets a little red mark next to it. And I know that it's behind schedule. It kind of gives me a visual cue. Because that's not available in the free version, I just did this a little bit different. So what I'm doing is when it matches that condition, I'm going to update the record status. So I'm going to change the status of whatever that record is. This is saying it's pulling in that task record ID, so whichever one it identified in the trigger, and it's changing the status to stalled. So I can't really test this because it's based off that last modified date, and I can't fake this to run this. But basically what it's going to do is if this one was in here and the last time I modified it was a week ago, it's going to automatically change this status to stalled. And because of the stacking order inside of my statuses here, stalled's the first one in here, it's going to move it to the top of this list. So what's handy about this is you might go, okay, these pricing page updates, this thing's stalled. So I could go into my notes and see what kind of notes I've left, or just reach out to that customer, hey, checking in on that information you're supposed to send me over on your pricing page, let me know. Then I can move it back to waiting. Now that last modified date has reset to today and we're on the clock again for another week. But I found that kind of automation really handy because I don't have to manually think about when was the last time I reached out to this client? Have I been waiting too long? Maybe they didn't get my email. All those kinds of things. Airtable's automations are going to do it for me. So that's a handy one. Lastly is one that comes in handy if you have some really good processes in place. So this one is new website onboarding. So what this is going to do is if the status is open, and just some fail safes in here if the client is not empty and if the type is website build. I'm just trying to be really specific so this automation doesn't fire off accidentally. Basically what I'm wanting to do is if a project goes from like an opportunity to actually an open project, so the client signed on, paid their invoice, we're ready to get started, that's when I want this automation to fire. And what I want it to do is just create some tasks for me. Because you might have some specific things you need to do as soon as a project starts, like send them an onboarding document. That's the example I've used here. So when a project is moved to open, then I want to add this task of send an onboarding document or send onboarding documents. I'm going to put the status as to do. I'm going to link into whatever that project ID is. And then I'm going to make the due date whatever today's date is. Now you can go in here and add lots more actions. So we could say, we create that record. Let's create another record. It could be for several things in your process. But just for the sake of simplicity, I just have this one record in here. So what we can do is see this in action. If we go back to our tasks here, I do have this already fired off. What we can say here is we have a opportunity here for ABC Pest new website, and it's a website build, and there's a client in there and everything. It's opportunity. But let's say this client signed off, they paid their invoice, and we're ready to move this to an open project. So now when I move this to open, right now, Airtable just went and fired off this automation. So when I switch back to tasks, I'm going to have a task in here already assigned to this project that says send them the onboarding documents. So we'll go back here and we see ABC Pest new website, send onboarding documents. So this automation automatically fired for me right away because I changed that status. So things like that are really important, are really useful if you have a lot of processes in place, and when something changes, you need to do a bunch of other things. Really, this is going to depend so much on your setup, but I just wanted to include that one here and as an example because it comes in handy for all those processes. So anyways, I think this is an overview of the basic things you can do inside of Airtable. Obviously, like I said a million times, context is really important, and then trying to figure out what data is important to you and when you'd want to see that and how you need to collect that and how those things link together. It's a lot of work on the front end, but what I found for my setup, I like the way this works. This connects really well with my brain and the way my brain thinks. So for me, this has been the only system I've really stuck with a long time because I can customize it exactly to what I need. I'll open this up in the morning, see what my to-dos are, start knocking them off my list, and if a project stalled, I get alerts, all those kinds of things. If I move a phase, I get automatic tasks created, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's really helpful in those kinds of things. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm sure you'll have questions where I didn't make sense, and I'm happy to go over those with you.